Welcome to Make Today Count, your 60 minutes of fresh conversation served up to inform, educate, and inspire an abundant life. I'm your host, Ross Dean, and each episode I chat with thought leaders, influencers, and experts in their game who all have one thing in common: the desire to go the extra mile, pushing against the status quo to create a richer life for both themselves and those around them. Powered by compassion and driven by the need to leave the world that little bit better than when they arrived. Okay, hi guys, and welcome back to the new episode of Make Today Count. We've got an excellent guest for you today, Molly Wilson from NW Media. Molly, how are you doing? Okay.
Hi, yes, very well, thank you. Very, very happy to be here. Thank you.
No, thank you so much for your time. Really interested to get into this conversation about Instagram for business. I think Instagram is something that everyone's pretty much using for their own personal reasons. But I think when it comes to using it effectively for business, I think for a lot of us, we kind of hit and hope with a lot of stuff that we're putting out there. We don't really know kind of if it's the best thing to do for our business individually. So looking forward to getting into that conversation today. Before we knock off with that though, what I love is that could you give the listeners a little bit of background about kind of I guess your background and kind of where you are and where you got to today?
Yeah, of course. So originally, most people might know me from a company. Well, it's the same company. It's called Be Social and Design,
Sure.
social media company, which I first started in September 2018, I believe it was. And then I've recently rebranded to MW Media in the last couple of months. And yeah, it's kind of just happened really. Like when I first started social media, it was kind of when the age of social media coming around. So it was sort of 2012, 2013 when it was really starting to get big. I was actually working for my mum in a clothes boutique in Stowmarket. And it was kind of, she was battling against the online businesses against the high street business. And she sort of said, look, I need your help. I need to get onto social media and I really need to kind of make this work. Otherwise, we're going to go under. So it was kind of a bit of a fight or flight, really. I kind of had to learn it. I had to immerse myself into the social media world. And I'm so glad I did, because if I hadn't have done that and that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. So I had to kind of learn it all off the bat. I did a lot of courses. I did a lot of reading, a lot of YouTube videos on how to make social media work for you. And to be honest with you, Ross, a lot of that kind of it didn't really matter. I think a lot of it is kind of learned through experience. So yeah, that's kind of where I came from. I then did quite a few internships in London working for startup companies and helping them sort of drive their social media forward. Various different companies, all like tech companies, fashion, luxury companies, all sorts, to kind of get me where I am today. So yeah, that's kind of my background and how I first got into it.
And how has that changed, kind of going from, you know, the boutique where your mum had over to those businesses in London? Do you see any kind of, was there much difference in the way that they were doing social media?
Yeah, a lot. So with sort of my mum, it was very, very local social media. So mainly it was Facebook really. And then we kind of progressed onto Instagram. And then we actually sold the shop. So it stopped. And then I kind of went on to the London stuff. So yeah, completely different strategies, completely different kind of target audiences. Yeah, it was very different.
Perfect. So you have a company whereby you know, small businesses can come to you to kind of help with social media marketing and that kind of stuff. Why do businesses really sort of come to you in the first place? Is it something that they can't do or something they just need kind of help with? How does it kind of work?
Completely a bit of both, to be honest. So I usually it's more the kind of local small businesses that just feel completely clueless. And to be honest, they're actually quite scared of it. They're a bit like, oh God, I'm not really sure what I should be doing. And then I have some businesses that are slightly larger, maybe a little bit more kind of global, that are more can't do it and need somebody to do it. So you have a bit of both in this industry. And yeah, I think mostly people are just kind of scared. They don't want to do the wrong thing. They want to make an impact quickly, which is kind of why they bring me on board.
Perfect. And I think for a lot of businesses, you know, using something like Instagram or any of the other social media platforms is, for a lot of businesses, you know, using probably your mum's shop as an example in that first instance, where people know they need to be on there. They know they need to be active.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's one of those things where, especially if you've got, I guess, a bricks and mortar type business, you kind of keep putting off and putting off sometimes if you haven't got
Yeah.
someone in the business that's kind of dedicated to that. Why do you think kind of people kind of, I guess, put off a lot of this stuff sometimes, especially when they've got kind of bricks and mortar businesses? Is it just because they
I
don't kind of know what to do? Or?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's because they don't know what to do, but also, as you well know, social media is extremely time consuming,
Mm,
and the content that's being put out there now is so good that I think a lot of people feel like they just can't keep up with it, so they just don't bother doing it. Which is, I can understand the attitude, but it's kind of the wrong attitude to have. Having any form of presence is better than having none. So yeah, I think people just are scared of it. They don't really know what they're doing, and they just put it off. But I would encourage anybody, especially if you do have like a kind of bricks and mortar business, just to get involved in it. Even if you're just posting once a week to start with, and you're feeling like your content is worthless to somebody, it's always beneficial.
And I think probably the other thing that's important to mention as well is that Instagram initially started as somewhere where you just kind of post photos. That was
Yeah,
the initial place to start from. But now obviously there's the video is a huge part of Instagram, and also the use of stories and IGTV. So there's lots of, I guess, new channels, as it were, within Instagram that need to be considered as well.
yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. I think it did go from such a simple platform where people were just happy posting their morning coffee to suddenly everything is kind of looked at in fine detail, which I love for my business side. But I think for the personal side, it's really difficult for people to kind of feel like they're keeping up with the way that Instagram is going.
No, definitely. And I think for a lot of people, even if they are using it for businesses at the moment, it's kind of like what makes that effective? Because like you say, anyone can post what they had for dinner, that night, or,
Yeah.
speaking about what they do for that day. But from your point of view, as someone that kind of works with businesses, what do you kind of feel is effective social media marketing when it comes to marketing business on Instagram?
I think a lot of it, and I say this to a lot of my clients when I'm training them, is just definitely injecting your personality into the business. There's a very fine level of being professional and also, like I said, injecting your personality. But I think it's definitely a kind of effective way to get yourself out there as well. People like to buy from people. It's an old age saying, and it's still very clear as day now. And I think one thing that's very effective is just trying to get yourself across and how you kind of feel so passionate about your business, because people love that, and I think they're 10 times more likely to engage with that than if it's just a constant stream of a selling platform.
Hmm. No, definitely. And it's I think it's one of those things as well where it's just like you say, it's time. Time's a huge part of this stuff as well,
Yeah,
and I think for a lot of people, I guess it's why they come and use businesses like yourself. It's just the time element, and also I think these things have got to have intention behind them as well. So if you're posting stuff, for whatever reason for your business, there needs to be some intention around something off the back end because it's time invested, I'm guessing, in the business. So it needs to have an outcome.
absolutely. Yeah.
Um, Around the back of it as well. Is that something you kind of work with clients with as well around, what is the intention around some of this content?
Oh, absolutely. Like I have lost count, to be honest, the amount of times I've said, what is the intention behind that? Whether it's to a local client or a luxury client, they're both the same. A lot of the time, people just feel like they need to just put content out there 6 times a week, and it is completely meaningless and it has no intention. So
Mm,
yeah, I think definitely. But I think to be able to, if you're feeling lost and you are a business and you're feeling like, I don't really know what my intentions are, I would highly recommend you speak to a professional, whether it's a content creator.
mm.
I know that you guys are really good. You're really good friends with the Media Bros, who are brilliant content creators in their field, or a social media professional like myself. There's plenty of people out there that even if you just get an hour Zoom call with them just to get a bit of advice, you can really gather your intentions just by doing that. So yeah.
And I guess from working with all the companies that you do work with, you probably see a lot of instances where maybe people are using it, but not maybe in the right way. What are a lot of people or businesses doing wrong when it comes to using Instagram?
Oh God, how long have you got? Oh God.
is it just around that kind of not having the attention behind it? Is it or a mix of different things?
I think number one thing, which I've touched on already, is not
Mm,
dedicating the time to it.
yeah.
I feel like if you really want to do it, you have to dedicate the time to it. And if you don't feel like you can dedicate the time to it, assign somebody who knows what they're doing to it, because it's a bit like anything. Unless you put in 100% effort, you're not really going to get much return.
Mm,
So I feel like definitely not adding enough time to it is a detrimental effect. And I think it's also just kind of being too nervous about it. I think
mm.
people are too nervous, and that can also have a detrimental effect. If you just kind of go with it, roll with what you think, and yeah, I don't know.
I,
It's a really hard question because there's so many
yeah.
things that people are doing wrong, but there's so many things people are doing right. So it's
And I
kind
think
of it's not a one case fits all.
yeah, I think that's a really good point around people being apprehensive, because I think, especially in the, if you haven't sort of delved into some of these channels before and used it for business, there's a lot of kind of myths we tell ourselves about why we shouldn't do, and we're just programmed to move towards things that make us feel good, and draw away from things that don't make us feel good. So, you know,
Yeah.
it's what are the kind of some of the things we kind of tell ourselves? Because I know, speaking from my own experience in the past, when maybe, I started using it for my business, it's kind of like, well, I'm not that interesting. What do people want to know about me? Or, I'm not like that person over there who does it online, and that can sort of
Yeah.
comparison things. I guess you see that quite a lot as well.
Yeah, oh God, absolutely. And taking it away from a kind of business perspective as well. Even I'm online personally, and I have over not many followers, over about 1,400 followers. And I'm sort of trying to be a positive voice in the world at the minute of everything going on. And it's really difficult. And some days you get up and you think, oh, no one's going to care about that. And oh, no one's going to think that's worth it. But honestly, even when it comes to business or personal, the reaction that you get when you do post something that you don't think is going to be of any value to anybody
Hmm.
usually is the most value. So I just encourage people that if you're feeling, oh, well, no one's going to want to see my face on my business page, or no one's going to want to know what I think about this, just be the voice, just say what you honestly feel, because it usually is the most valuable content you'll ever do.
And I think that's a great point, just leaning into that authenticity of whatever makes because I think the other side of the coin is that, you could think, well,
Excuse me.
I need to be like X, or I need to be like this person when it comes to my social media presence. And then what happens is, after a while, you're having to, you know, be someone that you're not every day if you're posting every day.
Yeah.
And that just creates more anxiety and more kind of worry around,
Oh,
a lot
and
of
it
this
can
stuff.
so very quickly spiral out of control as well. When you've kind of not got that authenticity and you're kind of trying to be someone that you're not, it very quickly spirals out of control and can get unmanageable. So yeah, just be yourself. As cliche as that sounds.
So to break it down for people, listening, that maybe have maybe used the platform for personal reasons, just to post videos of their kids, or that kind of stuff, and looking to use it for business. What I'd love to do is kind of break it down into some of the different aspects of how Instagram is made up. So in essence, we've got the feed, the main feed, which is on the main screen when you log in on your mobile. We've got stories, and we've got IGTV. I think I've captured
Yeah.
all of them there, but let's go to the first one. So if we talk about feed, essentially,
Yeah.
how when you work with clients, what should we be posting and using the feed for on Instagram?
Okay, so I always say to anybody, the feed is the shop window of your business. So this is what you want to look pretty. You wouldn't put things in the shop window that are not so good, don't really appeal to the eye, and not the best thing that you've got in the shop. So the best things that you've got in the shop that you can give away for free, put that on your feed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I guess from a lot of people, if they've come to your profile, that's the first thing that they're going to see, isn't it? If
Yeah.
they go to your profile, so it needs to be a true representation of your brand.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's where the time needs to be spent. Like that's where the content creation really needs to come into it. So whether
mm.
you're doing videos, whether you're just making good things on Canva, or you've generally got really valuable content to generate, that's where that needs to be. That is kind of like the Bible of your business, essentially.
Because there's a whole host of ways that you can kind of arrange and style that feed, isn't there? We
Of course, yeah.
using maybe text-based post every now and then for, you know, to give sort of a checkerboard effect, or, you know, all other ways, because it's not just kind of like a, that's the thing. I think for a lot of people, they think it's just purely a photo platform, but within this feed, you're able to use video, you're able to use text-based posts. Is there
Yeah.
kind of any rules of thumb around, you know, how often or what you should be doing there, or is it just kind of whatever's a good fit for you and what feels good for your business?
Yeah, I completely the second point, whatever fits for your business. I think the moment that you just take it like from a personal perspective as well, the moment that social media managers try and put pressure on businesses to post every single day
Yeah,
when it's just them, the authenticity goes out the window straight away, because people are just pressured just to post something, and not everybody has the time. So I just feel like it's a completely up to you and what fits for your business. Like, for example, it might work for a grocery business. They might want to post every single day because they've got new things coming in every single
yeah,
day. But if you are a bricks and mortar business, like we spoke about in the first part, business that your projects are going to take time, you're not going to have something to post every day. So don't put that pressure on yourself to do it, because it isn't gonna look or feel good. So yeah.
yeah. And I guess to give the listeners some kind of tangible ideas for, you know, what to post on the feed. You know, we're talking about photos. You know, we're talking about text-based stuff. So maybe testimonials, I guess, from clients
Oh
might be a
God.
good thing to use.
Yeah, quotes, testimonials, anything, any sort of content that you think is worthwhile. So I posted something the other day about how portrait images perform a lot better than landscape images on Instagram. It's
Hmm.
just generally a really useful piece of content. So anything like that. Um, yeah, videos. Gosh, there's so much you can post as long as it's kind of meaningful.
Yeah. And then to move on to stories, which is kind of, I guess, the next part of this. So can you just give us a bit of a background of kind of what stories are and how they kind of fit in with everything else?
Yeah, so essentially, stories came in a couple of years ago into Instagram. Originally, it was just part of the feed, and we, I don't know about you, but I was so kind of against them at the start. I was like, what are these stories and what are they doing on Instagram? Because originally Snapchat was for the stories. So it was all a bit of a shock. But yeah, so basically stories last on your profile for 24 hours. You can post up, I think it's up to 100 stories a day. They last for 15 seconds long, and they are essentially what I would call the back room of your business. So you have the shop window, which is the feed, and then the stories are the back room of the back, kind of the backstory of your business, and that kind of shows more behind the scenes, maybe a little bit more about your personality, and kind of like, yeah, just generally other things that you want to share but you don't feel are as valuable as what would be on the feed.
Yeah.
So
So
I encourage people to really sort of get on their stories, and at least I encourage people to kind of post more stories than I do feed nowadays.
yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. It's sort of behind the scenes, I guess, to the business, isn't it? So maybe,
Yeah,
you know, where the stuff on the feed is more kind of curated and you've spent more time on that, you know, people kind of expect the stories to be a little less polished, I'm guessing, because it's kind of a
yeah,
behind. And I think that's the nice thing about it. You kind of, by, you know, clicking that top link at the top of the page means like, oh, I'm going behind the scenes of that business. I wonder what they're doing today. And I guess,
absolutely.
you know, people
And
see that
because
more.
it's only the, sorry, Ross.
No, I was just going to say that people see that more of a behind the scenes thing. It's kind of like they expect it to be more frequent, I guess, in being in the stories.
Yeah, and because it's only lasts for 24 hours, you've seen what that
Mm.
person's been up to in the last day. So
Yeah,
you feel like you've almost got privy to seeing what that business is up to behind the scenes. So I always suggest that you should, the content still needs to be valuable. Don't get me wrong. It can't just be you murmuring on about a load of stuff that you think might be important, but possibly isn't going to be to your audience. It still
mm.
needs to be something of worth of value, but it can definitely be a lot more of a casual side of your business than what the feed is.
Yeah. So I guess going back to our greengrocers example, you know, for
Yes.
someone that's listening, so this could be, I'm guessing, you know, maybe what produce they've got the day. Maybe the delivery's coming in and they're getting some short video shots of the, you know, the lorries coming in, bringing in the produce, or
Yeah,
unpacking, or um,
absolutely. And show people that.
mm,
People will love to see, people are nosy at the end of the day, and they love to see what is actually going on behind the scenes. I worked with a food manufacturing company a while ago, and they were like, oh no, we definitely wouldn't show anything of it being made. And I was like, why not? And they were like, well, do people want to see that? I said,
Mm,
honestly, people want to see their food being made, their produce being put onto lorries, their
mm.
cakes being made. Like, that is what people want to see. So 100% do it. And it worked for them.
And people love stories, don't they? So that's a quick and easy way that you can kind of set yourself apart from maybe someone else that does the same thing as you, whereby you can say,
Yeah,
come into my business and understand, looking at my own business and what I've used in the past with like the use of photography. If you just done a shoot for someone and maybe you're now sort of editing that or going through those stages, you can kind of give a little glimpse of what that shoot is going to
yeah.
be like when you're doing it. So the person, maybe you've taken someone through a session and then they're now kind of in your stories and thinking, oh, that's my work that's coming through, or that kind of thing.
Absolutely, it makes people feel special. And I did some Instagram workshops about a year ago in
Mm,
Bury St Edmunds, and they were really good. But I heard people were very nervous, or they'd let me know they're very nervous of attending because they
mm,
weren't really sure what the setup was. So one day I did like a little video behind the scenes of the room that we were doing the workshop in. I explained kind of like the dynamics, where people sit, and everything like that. And I had about 3 people book after they saw that, because instantly
mm,
they felt more comfortable that they'd seen the room that they were sitting in, they'd seen the behind the scenes, and it wasn't just this polished thing on
mm.
Instagram. They saw the actual kind of the dirt behind it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also, if you're sort of B2B kind of business, it's a great way to kind of effectively network, within those
Oh,
stories,
yeah.
by tagging other businesses in. Maybe you've had a meeting with someone that's been, it's been a great meeting. You can tag them in, get a selfie or whatever, at the same time.
Yeah.
So there's other ways that you can kind of help bring up other businesses and do kind of stuff vice versa for people as well.
Yeah, definitely. Completely agree. Yeah, stories are great. I absolutely love them. And I'm a big sort of avid believer that they do
Mm.
good, 100%.
So then moving on to IGTV, which I guess was the last iteration of something that was new that came out. How does that
Yeah.
kind of differ to the stories element of Instagram?
So I would say IGTV sits somewhere smack bang in the middle of both of those. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Mm,
It's a new thing, and I think a lot of people have very different opinions on IGTV. Some hate it, some love it. But as a business tool, I would say it's very good if the content is spot on. And what I mean by that is, if the people that are listening that don't know about IGTV, you can film videos from up to 1 to 15 minutes if you're not
yeah.
verified. And basically they can sit on your feed, or they can just sit on your IGTV section. And the only thing I'd say about it is it's a very long time to keep the user engaged if your content isn't spot on.
Mm,
So it needs to be something that is either a big topic that you want to talk about, or it needs to be a video that is very well edited. Just, I would
yeah.
say that for businesses, and I've seen this happen in the past, that just pop the camera up, chat for 15 minutes about just something that's going on in their business that isn't really very interesting to other people. It
Mm.
just is quite, I think it can have a detrimental effect. I think the video needs to be very well thought and yeah, edited.
Yeah, I guess unlike stories whereby it's going to disappear, whatever you're putting on IGTV, as you say, it's got to be quite a bit more polished, but also you've got to remember
Yes.
that it's going to be there for a long time, as long as, you have it up there. So it kind of needs to be, maybe if we look at our greengrocer example again,
Yeah.
maybe if maybe they're creating a video around, maybe some recipes or something like that they can use with their
Yeah.
produce. Maybe it's something that, a new stew or a broth or something that they can use at their produce. They take some more time to film it, kind of like they would do for YouTube, I guess, in that it's
Yeah.
a little bit more kind of polished.
That's the thing. And personally, I've started doing a lot on IGTV, and very quickly realized that I think, yeah, if you're going to be doing videos over 10 minutes long, then you might be better to transform to another platform.
Mm,
Because not only are you I know for a lot of people it seems like a lot of extra effort, and it probably is, but if you've got videos that you regularly want to post that are 10-15 minutes long, like you said, recipe videos or makeup tutorials or something like that, then you might be better to go onto another platform. That way you're not only spreading yourself over a variety of different platforms, which is good for you and your business,
Mm.
it also in turn, YouTube brings up, I mean, I know we're talking about Instagram, but YouTube is got a lot of good positives to it as well. So yeah, it needs to be like, that's why I said I think IGTV sits somewhere in between the stories and in between the feed. It's kind of a tricky one that I think people are still trying to work out.
So, we've covered, all the different aspects of Instagram. What I want to delve into next was kind of that age-old question of when is the right time to put some of this stuff out? Because,
Yeah.
for a lot of people, it's kind of like, if they haven't got a schedule as such, it's kind of like whenever I remember to post. It could be
Yeah.
first thing in the morning. It could be, last thing at night when I got some time after the kids have gone to bed or something like that. Um, you know, when you work with clients, I'm sure that's something that kind of comes up, if we're talking about time and how to manage your day. Is there kind of more effective times, or is it just a case of trying things and measuring them and kind of see how you go?
Yeah. So basically, when Instagram, I know you know this, Ross, but I'm just trying to explain it just for the listeners.
Mm,
So when Instagram first came about, it was based on when you posted, your post came up at that time. So it was very, very important to make sure that everybody was posting at 7 p.m. and at 8 a.m.
mm,
And it was kind of a very done thing. But a couple of years ago, Instagram brought in something called an algorithm, which basically means that, I'm trying to explain it in the most simple form, that Instagram will show you what it thinks you want to see. So if you're engaging with somebody regularly, Instagram will throw up that post to you because it knows that that's what you want to see first. So
mm.
whether that person posted it at the right time or not, it essentially doesn't really matter as much now with the Instagram algorithm, because it kind of overthrows the when shall I post question.
Mm.
However, I still think it is important to make sure you're posting at relatively good times, because I see some people completely ignore the algorithm and the time in post and just go solely with the algorithm, and they're posting at like midnight and they're like, I'm not really getting any traction, but I should, because the algorithm should throw it out to people that follow. And I'm like, no, it doesn't really work like that. We're kind of in between. I think all social media managers will agree that it's a really tricky situation with the algorithm at the minute. But to go back and answer your question on when is the best time to post, it honestly comes down to your target audience. And I know that sounds like a really sort of try and get out of it question, but it does. I have clients I've spoken to recently that have a lot of businesses surrounding with childcare.
Mm.
And I've said to them, your target audience is mums, isn't it? Basically, mums and dads, and grandparents, really. Now, when are you? Because they're all mums themselves. When are you on your phone? They're like, well, before the school run, after the school run, and usually when I put them to bed. So I'm like, well, there you go. That is when you're on your phone. You're a mum. Your target audience is mums. That, it kind of gives you some sort of insight into when your kind of target audience, when you should
Yeah.
be posting, essentially. But it honestly comes down to, I've got luxury clients that have total different post times to when I do a local client, and they're more sort of, their target audience is mums. It's kind of a complete roundabout way, really.
Yeah, no, completely agree. For my own business, whereby I'm pretty much B2B. So for me, it's like, when people first get into the office and first turn on their PC, or, maybe lunchtime when they're, at their desk having their lunch, or
Yeah,
maybe it's on a Friday afternoon when people are winding down, and
yeah,
they're maybe not engaged in, heavy work or anything like that. So that's a really great point. I think you just need to just take a step back, look at your target client, and then kind of think about how does their day run and kind of work into
yeah,
that. And I guess also, speaking about stories and stuff like that, you need to be mindful. Like, I've done this in the past myself, is that maybe you've recorded a short video, maybe in the morning when you first got up, talking about, I don't know, going for a run or something like that. And then you've forgotten about it. And then you decide to post it just before you go to bed in the evening. And then I
hmm
guess there's that kind of authenticity element of, you know, why are you posting it now? Because you went for that run first thing. And
yeah,
you kind of have to consider, I think, around stories, because stories are more of a kind of like a behind the scenes at the time that things happen type
yeah.
space. So I think if anything, you just need to just settle on who am I targeting at, my content at, and when's the best time for them, I guess.
Absolutely. And it's kind of like just try and do some research around it as well. Like
Mm.
I answer polls all the time on Instagram stories about, people are always asking, doing market research, like when are you online, and what time do you wake up? What time do you go on Instagram first thing when you wake up? If 90% of people say, yes, I do go on Instagram the time I wake up, well, then you think, well, I've then got a window of, I don't know, 6 till 8 of when people are waking up, and 90% of my audience said that that's when they look at it. So it's kind of just like trying to do your market research, like you say, really kind of like zoning into your target audience and just realizing when they're online. But a good little tip as well, which I've told a few people recently that have got businesses in childcare, is I asked them, and it was quite funny. I thought, you're a parent, aren't you, Ross?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I'm not a parent, but I have lots of friends that are, and I always say, when are you kind of online? And they're like 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm feeding the baby. And I always say to my clients that are kind of like, they've got a target audience of mums with babies, post at 2 o'clock in the morning, post at 3 o'clock in the morning, because you will pick up some traction. There will always be a few mums that are feeding the baby, changing the babies, that are just scrolling through their phone whilst they just, take a minute. And you've got a bit of a target audience there that you're missing. So yeah, that's a kind of little tip that I always tell them.
I think that's a really great point, because almost out of that you can kind of make it a thing. So you could make like
Absolutely.
2 a.m. club or something like that.
Yeah.
Whereby that, everyone knows at some point you're going to be posting something at 2 a.m. to help them through that stage of,
Completely.
from
And
doing
it
that.
starts a conversation. Like then there's other mums on there. I've seen people do it before. There's other mums on there that are like chatting, like, "Oh, I'm up. Are you up? Yeah, I'm up." And you instantly started that community just by looking at your target audience and when they posted. So, and by the way, when I say post at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would never expect somebody to actually get up. This is like actual scheduling it on a scheduling platform.
Yeah. And I think also, to think about, this kind of market research stuff that you can do up front, we're just talking about Instagram to get today, but it also will play a big part in what you use on Facebook, on Snapchat, or, TikTok, or any of those
Yeah.
platforms, because the viewer will be the same person. They'll just be using different platforms. So it's kind of like the work that you can do up front is going to benefit you in lots of different ways afterwards.
Yeah, completely. It's a bit of a slog to start with. I wouldn't lie and sugarcoat it. To try and like work out your target audience and do your market research and put that time and effort into your content can initially feel like a slog. And it has for me in the past, when I've been trying to put myself under pressure to post every single day and do 5 stories a day and put an IGTV up a week. I think you just need to kind of take a step back, really analyze it, because a lot of the time you don't need to be posting every day.
No.
And it kind of, the more pressure you put yourself under, the worse it's going to be. So yeah, that was a very roundabout way of me answering your question. Sorry.
No, you're fine. And we touched upon a little bit there in scheduling, and that's the kind of the next point I want to go on to, about kind of how to post, because obviously we've got a few choices. First being that, as and when you can do it as and when you create the content. I guess that's one option. So if I'm creating something in the morning, I can post it at that point. I guess there's another way where you could create the content and then remember each point in today to manually upload it. And the third way is kind of using a tool to schedule some of these posts, and maybe if people haven't thought around, or maybe they haven't come across these kind of scheduling tools, can you kind of give a bit of background to kind of how they work and stuff?
Yeah, of course. I think it's really important actually that you raise those points, that it doesn't just have to be on a scheduling platform, because I think a lot of people feel a little bit nervous sometimes to be like, oh, I don't know how. Maybe if they're not so tech savvy, they feel slightly nervous to go on to something like Hootsuite. So you have got options of, you can just post manually. But yeah, going on to the scheduling thing, I mean, to be honest with you, it's completely changed my life. Up until about 2 years ago, I was just posting as and when I felt like it. And the pressure was quite immense, to be honest. And when I then decided that I was going to learn, my scheduling platform of choice is Hootsuite. And I know there's a lot out there. There's Buffer, Later, there's all sorts. But I personally use Hootsuite, and I'd recommend anybody to use it. But when I first started using that, it is honestly a game changer, because it allows you to create all your content, put all of your content and schedule it for, I think it's up to like 3 months in advance.
Okay.
So, and it's perfect for even when you're going on holiday. So say you decide you want to post manually, but actually I need a break, but I need my social media to keep ticking over, which I always recommend. Try and get yourself on some sort of scheduling platform, because you can just literally, it's so easy. You put your picture in there, you put your caption on there, you connect it to what social media you want, you choose your time and your date, and you schedule it. And it is like, unless there's anything technical goes wrong, which is very rare, it goes on and it's
Mm.
done. So I don't know if you use it, Ross, but honestly, it was a complete game changer for me.
No, I do, and especially, a big game changer for me has kind of been batching. Whatever I'm doing,
Yeah,
so if it's social media posts, if it's podcast recordings, anything like that. I think to start off with, I think a lot of people are in the same boat, whereby they will, they'll schedule stuff, but they will do some on a Monday, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, a Thursday, something like that. So for me, so I use a Sunday evening is where I
yeah,
batch all of my stuff for that week, so the forthcoming week, and that's been a real game changer, in that I can dedicate an hour, and it doesn't take long, to be honest. You can get a whole week's worth of content out for maybe an hour or something like that,
yeah,
and it just means that you're not, for me it was kind of like, you're not kind of breaking up the day to do little things, if that makes sense,
yeah, I
rather than
completely
you can,
agree.
so I know that Sunday evening, after the kids have had a bath and they're in the beds, that's the time when I can go and
Yeah,
just kind of schedule it all out for the week, rather than on a Monday remembering to do a little bit, Tuesday remembering to do a little bit. Is that kind of how you would do yours, and is that sort of a similar
yeah.
kind of way?
Yeah, completely. I agree with you. Like batch creating content and scheduling it is, on the anxiety when you've done that, don't you feel it? Like on a Sunday night, mine's personally on a Friday afternoon. I
Okay.
actually sit down. I'm not promoting drinking on this podcast, but I sit down with a gin on a Friday afternoon, and honestly, my productivity. I know everybody's different, but my productivity goes through the roof. I just sit
Mm.
there and I'm like, right, I bang it all out. It's all done, and the anxiety that I feel then on a Monday morning is not even. It's not even there compared to when I haven't done it. I
Yeah.
then know that the whole week is done. And if I wanted to go on holiday that week, I could essentially, because
Yeah.
I've done it all. And if something happened that week that came up, or I had to go into London, obviously not the minute, but it's okay because it's done. So I would
Mm.
encourage anybody to do it. And obviously, it's a bit different for me because I have clients that I have to spend a lot more time on it than just doing my personal social media. So
Mm.
I set out a day every single week for that client. So I have Monday for one, Tuesday for the other, Wednesday for one, and Thursday, and then Friday I basically just collate it all,
Yeah.
get back all of the content plans that have all been approved, and
Yeah.
then Friday is my day to collate it all. Sometimes Saturday morning if I haven't got enough time, and then it just runs over, and then my week is clear. So
Mm.
I would recommend going onto a scheduling platform to anyone. I really would.
Mm. And there's tons out there, so you can just pop them into
Yeah,
Google, and you have lots of options there. And a lot of the platforms, if you're not pushing out too much every week, there's lots of free kind of elements to those, so you can kind of
yeah,
test drive them and see, um, you know, you know which one's a good fit, I guess. And the great thing about these as well is that I found is that most of them also have mobile apps as well, so you don't
yeah.
necessarily have to be at your desk. So
No.
you could be, while you're doing something else, in between cooking the dinner or whatever, whatever fits for you. It's kind of a way where you can identify times in your week when you have some downtime and it's a good fit for you, and just kind of work around that.
Yeah, and it makes you feel like a boss, honestly.
Yeah.
When you've done all that and your content's popping up and you haven't even thought about it, you're like, oh yeah, I posted this morning, and you look at it and you see the traction, you're like, oh yeah.
Mm.
I don't
Yeah.
know, it just makes you feel good. So, but another tip I'll just say actually to anybody listening who feels like scheduling isn't for them, a
Mm.
good tip to do, which I do always say when I'm doing training, is you can save things as drafts on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it's really, so if anybody doesn't know how to do it, then please feel free to DM me. But it's a really simple way of creating your content, writing all your caption and everything, but then just saving it as a draft. Because
Mm.
then if you do just feel like, oh, I need to post today, you may have like a selection of content there which are just sitting in your drafts, which you can literally just press post on. So that's a good little tip if you're feeling way too
Yeah.
overwhelmed with scheduling, but
Yeah.
also feel like you need to get a little bit of, something together.
Yeah, no, definitely. I guess there'll be a lot of people that listen to this saying, "Oh, that all sounds fantastic," and they're kind of still a bit on the fence.
Yeah.
What would you kind of say is, you know, what would you see as the main benefits of being more active for the business on Instagram? Do you think?
Oh, just everything.
Mm,
It just it's just a life changer, to be honest, for a lot of people. And I would just say to anybody who's feeling overwhelmed with it, and like you say, a bit on the fence, because I know there's so many people out there that are,
mm.
just give it a go. And my best advice, and I know this sounds biased, and you don't have to get any training done with me. There's plenty of social media managers out there, but get a little bit of training, because it's only a confidence when you want to start putting some things online, whether it's business or personal. Just
Mm.
get a little bit of training behind you, because not only will that social media trainer come up with ideas for you, which will in turn really help you script, and but also just give you that confidence to know that you're doing it right and somebody's just run their eye over it. And yeah, it honestly can be a complete game changer when you start to post on social media. It's just the confidence thing, I think, personally.
Yeah, and I think like anything marketing
And
related, we need to go where people's eyes are at any time, and it's well
yeah,
proven fact that people's eyes are on these platforms, and especially in this time that we've been recently, whereby people haven't been able to go out as much and that kind of stuff. People's eyes are on these platforms more. So if you're, I guess, if you're maybe you're trying to find some other ways to market your business, maybe some of the other ways haven't worked through more traditional type advertising, it might be worth it just to try.
yeah, definitely. And just to touch on that point as well, with if you're feeling underconfident,
Mm,
I always say this, and I don't. Some people think is that have a look what your competitors are doing,
mm,
because everyone's got a competitor. I don't care what you say. Everyone has always got someone that is kind of in the background of what they're doing. And I've never ever say directly copy them, because that's wrong. But definitely have a little look at what they're doing and just see if you can take some sort of inspiration from it, because it can feel really lonely when you first start as a business on social media and you might only have 20 followers and you feel like you're shouting to the abyss. Basically, there's no one kind of there, but just have a little look at what other people are doing and see if you can kind of take some sort of inspiration from that.
mm. And it may not be even people that you deem competitors. There's probably, if
Yeah,
as you listen to this now, working in your business, there's probably key people who you meet up with networking events, or maybe you do business with yourself, who you can just search for, find their content, see what they're doing, and just support each other as you go on.
absolutely. And I'm not even ashamed to say that that's what I did when I first started. I
Mm,
found a lovely lady. She's actually Pineapple White Media. She's called Georgie
okay.
White. She's a lovely lady. And she was actually really helpful. I messaged her a couple of times asking her a few questions. We're not anywhere near the same area. She's up in the Cotswolds and I'm down in Suffolk. So
Mm,
essentially we're not direct competitors at all. But people are generally really friendly and we're all kind of in this race together, and it is kind of, yeah, just to helping people. And like you say, you're not always direct competitors even if you do the same thing. So
mm,
yeah, that she was a big inspiration for me, and actually somebody that gave me a bit of confidence to kind of do what I was doing. So
mm.
yeah, you made a very good point there. We're not all competitors.
Yeah, and I think one of these things, as when you start using the platforms, you'll soon find out that consistency is kind of key around some of this stuff, and whether that means kind of using a social media manager or using a scheduling platform to help you with that. I guess that's the conversation you have with your clients, in that once you're up and running, it's important that you're quite consistent with what you're putting out.
Completely. Yeah, 100%. And I've had clients before come to me and say, "Oh, I just want to like commission you to just do one post a week for me." And I'm
Mm,
like, "No, because if I'm going to be doing it, it needs to be good and strong, and it needs to be content going out there every day." So, yeah, the consistency is. I've said it before, and it is key really to kind of. And you're brilliant at consistency, I must say, Ross. You're so consistent with all your posts, and you're always popping up.
that's a good or bad thing. I'm not sure.
No, it's good. It's good. I think it's really good. And that's the thing as well. Is a lot of I get the question, and just kind of going on to it, the subject is how if I post all every day or if I post all the time, are people going to get annoyed with me? And I say to people, well, if they're going to get annoyed with you, then they should just unfollow you
Yeah, I mean
because
that's
that's
a
your business.
no, definitely. I think that's a whole other conversation, and I think a lot of that is, it's a thing that a lot of people kind of tussle with, and it gets to a point where if you've got a business, it's because you're passionate and you believe in something.
Yeah,
And my thought around this, and things I've tussled with in the past, is that you know if you're proud of what you're doing, there's no reason why you shouldn't put it out on a regular basis.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, whatever anyone else thinks of what you're doing is kind of none of your business in that way, because it doesn't serve you in any way, shape, or form.
yeah,
So you just need to just encourage people to lean into some of this stuff, because once you get going with it and do it for a little while, it doesn't seem so bad. It doesn't seem so frightening. And it's like a muscle. You just train it, and after a while, you just
yeah,
kind of get into this. The thought of doing videos, a couple of years ago, just scared the shit out of me,
yeah.
to a
I
large
know.
extent. But it's just one of those things. If you can, I think you have to take a step back and say, look, currently, how is that serving me? Is it serving me how I want to be, feeling like that? And probably for a lot of people that are feeling like that at the time, it's kind of like, well, it's not really serving me anyway, because it's not put me where I want to be. Maybe not getting the clients I want. Maybe other people doing the same thing as me are doing it, and I'm not bringing myself in line with them. So, okay, so it's not serving you right. So what can you do to change it? And just take small steps, I guess.
Yeah,
We're not saying you've got to be some kind of influencer overnight.
no,
We're just saying that just be proud of what you're doing in your business, as you would do if you were to meet someone in the street, or you were to meet someone at a networking event. Give the same kind of passion that you would give to that person, but just do it in front of a camera. And
yeah,
the
absolutely.
great thing about all of this stuff is that putting your passion, or your you know what you really love out there, is it's there forever. It's there all the time. So
Hmm.
it's not as if you got to keep reiterating all this stuff. A great thing for me and my business has been, I touched upon this when I had the conversation with the media bros, in that a great way to start off is, for a lot of people on their websites, they've got an FAQ page
Yeah,
on their website that goes through stuff that maybe people have asked, every now and then, and you can kind of direct them to. Well, what better way than to just, if that content's there on your website and you've got different points for what to do when and all this kind of stuff, make a video or something for each of those points, and that will give you content for such a long time. Um,
yeah,
and
such a
all
good point.
and also, it's a great way to not just deliver it in a written word, but put across your personality at the same time.
Yeah,
There's a difference between me telling you, if I was to tell you, Molly, how to prepare for a headshot session, and I send you a link and to a blog post, and maybe there's some written words, that maybe that's great for SEO and that kind of thing. But if I can send you a video where you can, maybe if you haven't worked with me before, and you can get a feel for my kind of conversational style, my personality, sense of humor, that kind of stuff.
yeah, it
um
goes a long way.
yeah.
It
And I
really
think,
does.
yeah, and I think if you can just take a small steps through some of the stuff that we've spoken about today, I've no doubt that you'll see benefits going forward, with some of this stuff. Um, we've spoken about lots of stuff around scheduling and all these various ways to use the social media. Obviously, the other way is to work with someone like yourself for their social media marketing. If
Yeah.
someone was listening to this and kind of thinking, well, maybe something I kind of want some help with, what kind of advice would you give to someone looking for a coach, and kind of what should they be looking out for?
Yeah, it's a really good question actually, because there's so many coaches out there at the minute that are just, I don't know, without, there's just a lot of people out there that think they can do it, but don't actually kind of haven't got any proven track record of doing it, if that makes sense. So that's the key point for me, and I get asked it all the time when I'm pitching for new clients: is who do you work for currently? And that's a really good question to ask any coach: is who are your clients currently? And if
Mm,
they don't want to tell you, or they're a bit sheepish about it, that's a real big red flag for me, because they're quite clearly not proud of what they're doing. I know some clients are very private, but a lot of the time I think it's because they maybe aren't so, hot on what they're actually doing. So Yeah, ask them, who are your clients currently? Who have you worked with in the past? Have you got any social media handles that I can go and have a look at of what you've done in the past? And just kind of, I think it's a bit like with you, what you're saying about trying to get a feel for your actual coach and to know whether or not they're going to, have the same passion for your business as you do for it. And that's a really important point, and that's a lot of the point that my clients say to me of why they've chosen me is, God, you're really passionate about this, aren't you? And I said, yeah, because I love your business. I want to be a part of your business, and I actually feel proud to be a part of it. So I'm going to serve it as much of a purpose as what you will. So yeah, just trying to be passionate is a very big thing.
And I think also, most people will be quite happy to give you names of people that they're currently working with or have worked with in the past. And to be honest, you could even go to those people who they're working with and saying, "Look, I'm thinking about working with
Of
Molly
course.
around some of this stuff. What are your experiences with working with Molly with what you're doing?" And that's a good way,
Yeah.
because then you get sort of an unfiltered kind of reaction and some ideas. And you know personality counts for a lot of some of this stuff, whoever we're working with as well. So I think it's important that someone that kind of gets your voice and the tone of your business, but equally someone you get along with, because obviously you've got to be working with them quite a lot as well.
Yeah, I've stopped saying no. Like, I've learned, basically my New Year's resolution was to say no.
Yeah.
And it was mainly because I was just saying yes to everyone. I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll help you with that. Yeah, no worries. And I just wasn't having
Mm.
enough time. So to be able to say no to the businesses that maybe you don't think you're going to be able to dedicate time to is a really kind of, strong point. And if you get the vibe that a coach isn't really feeling it,
Mm.
then you're better to almost put a stop to it sometimes before they do, because a lot of the time they're just trying to say yes to everything. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's something I've definitely learned.
Yeah, and in the long run, it kind of helps everyone out, because everyone's then
It
going into it
does.
with the best intentions, with the, excited about what they're going to be doing for that person. So it just
Oh
kind of
God, yeah,
makes
and I've
sense.
had that in the past where I've said yes to people and then I haven't delivered and all
Mm.
sorts. And now I'm just a lot more honest. I just say, you know what, maybe your business isn't really my niche, or I feel like
Mm.
somebody else could help you better, and I'll recommend them to somebody else. Or yeah, so that actually brings a point. If anybody's listening to this who is a social media coach that is looking for clients locally, please get in touch with me, because I have a lot of people speak to me that need coaches to run their social medias, and I just
Mm.
don't have the capacity at the minute.
Mm.
And I'd love to be able to recommend them to other local people that do the same thing as me.
Perfect. Sounds good. And that's great. We all need to kind of help each other out, and especially, through the times that we've had recently, whereby, maybe, work hasn't been so flourishing as it has been
Yeah.
in the past. There's always a we can sort of raise each other up, which is really important as well. What I'd love to understand, Molly, again, for someone that's listening to this, is kind of the rough process from where you take a client from A to B, really, in regards to how you would work with them, just so people can get a feel for what it's like to work with a social media manager. I'm guessing it kind of starts with like a consultation or something to find out about more about that business.
Yeah. So essentially, what I would do is they either get in contact with me, or I pitch to them, and we have a little conversation about kind of what they want, basically like the feel for them. And then we'll have another conversation. Usually, I like to meet them, but obviously we can't at the minute. But I really don't like doing consultations over the phone, even on Zoom calls. I just love being able to actually like look at that person in the eye and speak to them. So yeah, we tend to just have a conversation, say kind of like the frequency of how often they want to post, what they want to achieve. Timescales are really important as well to get down. Some businesses have timescales of, I want to achieve this many followers, or I want to achieve this many inquiries by in a year. And it's really important for a social media manager to know that, because it's kind of like managing your expectations essentially. And yeah, so we have a conversation. I usually then go away, I'll create a quote, um, which is usually just in a PDF form. I'll send it over to you. You run over it, see what you think about it, and then we just get started. So if you're happy, we you give me all the social media handles, which I get set up. Usually I send my clients, it depends on client to client, but content plans monthly, or weekly. It literally just completely depends. And then you approve them, and yeah, we just kind of go from there. I have weekly calls or meetings with my clients, Some do or some I don't. It just completely depends. Some are so busy that they just don't feel the need for it and they just want me to get on with it entirely. And
Yeah.
they almost don't want to hear from me. They're like, right, this is yours now. I don't want to hear from you. You do it. And
Mm.
some really, really want to keep on track of it, which is totally fine. And I have conversations with them. So yeah, it's an easy process. It's just kind of making sure that you let your social media manager know exactly what you want, because it can very easily get lost in translation. And yeah,
Mm.
does that make
And
sense?
no, definitely, no, definitely. And I think for anyone listening to that, that will, especially when time is of the essence with a lot of our day to day, is that we just don't have too much time. Someone to help with some of this stuff is really helpful. Again, if someone was thinking about maybe using a social media manager, and again was just kind of, I guess on the fence again, what experiences have your clients had? Not to go into detail of who they are and what they're doing, but what do you think the kind of the main benefits are of working with someone around some of this stuff?
I think the main thing for them is having that constant communication between their followers and the company, which in turn is me. I'm the link there. So a lot of the time, these people that I work for, or just anybody, people don't have time. They're constantly on the go. So to be able to reply to DMs and messages and inquiries and things like that quickly is it's not even a thing. They just struggle with it. So to be able to have that strong link between the follower and the client, and a quick response is something that they kind of feel is quite invaluable. And it's also just having like the professionalism of making sure that they've got the right content and things that they just don't have the time for.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things, when we were in business and we're working with other people, it's, if you were to do your accounts, you would get an accountant or a bookkeeper to help you with that element of stuff.
Exactly.
And I think, something around social media management, because it's so important in today's business and in day to day, is equally something that's worth investing in if you have the resources to help you do so. A good point,
I think it's
sorry, you can say.
Yeah, I just say I think it's completely invaluable for a lot of
Mm.
people. And going back to what the media bros do as well, they basically generate content for a lot of personal trainers. And they did a video yesterday basically explaining how much time personal trainers save
Yeah.
by other people editing their videos. And it's
Mm.
the same as what I do. The amount of time that my clients save replying to DMs and almost filtering out the time wasters essentially,
Mm.
and that kind of goes on to me, and that's fine, I get paid for it. So
Yeah. And I often think about it as well, is that, for all these services that help you run a business, it's like the main, I guess the main goal is for the client to get the best experience possible. So,
yeah,
if you're working with someone doing photo editing or something like that, you could say that, that person who you're getting to help you do that work with only does photo editing. They're up to date with the latest technology. They are doing the latest courses, all this stuff. So
yeah,
you're giving your clients the best possible experience for that service,
hmm,
by using people that are really on their game. So I think that's a
yeah,
important point to make as well.
definitely.
You know,
And it doesn't have to be expensive as well, and
no,
that's a point I want to raise, because a lot of people think, oh god, it's going to be thousands a month for someone to run my social, or it's going to be hundreds a month for somebody to edit my videos. And if you shop around, there's genuinely like some really good people out there that are really willing to kind of help these businesses
mm,
for not actually a lot of money a month. So
yeah, no,
yeah,
definitely. The purpose of Make Today Count, the podcast, was for people to get involved with conversations around things that are important to them and their business and their life. And then from each conversation, my goal was for people to kind of take away something actionable that they could do the next day, which would help them take one more step closer to kind of where they want to be. When we're talking about social media, if someone was thinking, right, this is something I really need to nail in regards to Instagram for business, we know, and we've spoken about today, and that what we don't want people to do is go and do everything, because we all know that when we try and do everything, we get nothing done most of the
yeah,
time.
absolutely.
So, if you were to offer just kind of one simple small step to someone to make tomorrow, to just piecemeal to get them on their way to where they want to be with some of this stuff, what would you say?
Can I offer two?
Of course, I'll let
I
you have
think I've
two.
got
That's
two.
fine.
Okay. So the one thing I'd say, and like I said before, it doesn't have to be with me at all. Just try and find somebody to give you a little bit of training, because the confidence it will bring in you is ridiculous. So I think, yeah, definitely see if you can get some sort of training. And the second one is just is probably, if you are really struggling with social media and you're struggling to keep on top of it, do what me and Ross said, which is kind of like block out time where you can create and schedule your content, because it is a complete game changer and you will feel so much better. Is that okay?
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. And
Okay.
that's so important, because, for many of us, I'm guilty for this sometimes as well. If I get something that I really want to do, I was like, well, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it all. And at the end of the day, a week goes by and you still haven't done anything.
Oh, I'm the culprit of that, literally.
So it's so important, and you have to kind of just rein yourself back sometimes. But if you can just take a small step each day, it's like anything, whether it's business or your fitness or the way that you eat and that kind of stuff. It's all down to small steps, and small steps over a long period of time, in my experience, gives the best results. So excellent. That's really good.
Absolutely.
Molly, I know you've got lots of lovely clients that you're working with at the moment. Anything that you've got coming up you want to kind of talk about, or anything that you've got that's exciting around maybe training or something like that?
Yeah. So, obviously my rebrand, which happened kind of a couple of weeks ago, is really exciting. And that's kind of brought a real fresh perspective to my business and kind of like the community that I had before. So yeah, that's exciting. And yeah, clients, so it's going really well. And there's nothing essentially new coming up, but I'm really enjoying doing these kind of things. So like kind of speaking to a wider audience and not just my audience. So podcasts and Zoom calls and things like that, I'm loving. So yeah, no, generally it's going really well, and yeah, we're in a good place considering everything going on.
No, perfect. And for anyone that's kind of been listening today and they kind of think, yeah, I want to get in touch with Molly and to see what's going on, maybe how Molly can help me with my social media. What's the best way to get in touch with you, Molly?
Yeah, so the best way is definitely through my Instagram. So it's MW Media UK _. I've got like a pink and black logo, so that's the one you'll see there. Yeah, so please get in touch with me on there. DM me. I'm usually fairly quick at responses. I have a lot of accounts I have to get back to on a daily basis. So if I'm a little bit on the drag, please bear with me, but I'll get back to you as quick as possible. But yeah, please get in touch if you fancy any training, or you just need a little bit of advice, or you just want to ask any questions from this podcast. Please get in touch and I'll do my best to answer them.
That's perfect. And I'll put all those links in the show notes page for the podcast as well. So you can click directly through to Molly there as well. Molly, thank you so much for your time. What I'd love to do is kind of finish every podcast with gratitude. I think it's really important. So just to say thank you for everyone that you're helping with social media. It's lovely to see through your social media fields, whether it's your the business ones where you're helping businesses with a social media market and effectively get more business off the back end, or even if it's your personal accounts where you're promoting a positive outlook to everything that you do, especially in the times that we're in at the moment. I think that's appreciated by everyone that follows you, and I can see by the responses from that.
Thank you.
That's been a great help during this time as well. So thank you for everything that you do around that. Guys, what we'd really love you to do, if anything has resonated with you in this podcast today, we'd love it if you can get in touch. So feel free to contact Molly directly or contact myself as well. You can find all the details in the show notes there, as well as details around Molly's business and what she's doing as well. Also, if you haven't already, we'd love you to subscribe to the podcast. So please head over to wherever you listen to your podcast, whether it be Apple, Spotify, or wherever, and hit subscribe. And if you haven't done already, please leave us a review as well. And also, just a note at the end, we now have a community on Facebook, the Elevate community, where we encourage people who are really want to create an immense personal brand to come over, and where I share lots of information about how to do just that. So we'd love to have you there. Just search for the Elevate community over on Facebook. But until next time, I've been Ross Dean. This has been Make Today Count, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.